Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is going to be the last of my practice session series for the Red Hat EX374 exam, Red Hat Certified Specialist in Developing Automation with Ansible Automation Platform. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who has not subscribed to click that subscribe button. I also want to remind everyone that these are my practice sessions for the exam. I'm going through the objectives and either explaining them or doing some examples of whatever the objective is talking about. And throughout the video and at the end, I'll do an assessment and determine whether or not I feel pretty confident about the objective, which if so, that means I should do well with exam tasks that are related to it, or I might need to do some final extra preparation for the objective. I have just under a week before my exam, so not enough time to, learn anything new, but enough time if I need to brush up on a couple of things, I can get that on the front side of my head, because hopefully by this point, a week out, I should be pretty confident with all of the objectives. That being said, these should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered training materials. I do try to have the information accurate because obviously I'm preparing for the exam, but I'm still learning right along with all of you, so do not use these as authoritative information, but I put them out on the internet in hopes of, if you yourself are working toward these exams, watching my practice session might give you some ideas on ways that you can prepare yourself. So in this video, I'll be looking at the Manage Automation Controller objectives and the sub-objectives for that, the run playbooks and automation controller, and pull content into the controller, and also pull an execution environment from Automation Hub and run it in a playbook. So looking at these objectives, this is kind of an opportunity to sort of put it all together as far as all of the other objectives and doing stuff actually within the automation controller rather than just everything on the command line with Ansible Navigator, because I have a feeling for the exam, primarily the stuff that I'll be doing will be in an automation controller that they're likely going to provide me. Of course, there's no way for me to know, and even if I did, I couldn't share it because of NDA, but that's my guess as to what I'll probably be facing. So that being said, let me go to my command line, and I've went ahead and cloned an empty repository, manage aap.get, and that's where we're gonna build the stuff that we need to use the Ansible Automation Platform. So first of all, we're going to set up some credential stuff, and I did this I think in my last video, and I'm fairly sure I made a mistake because there was something out like I set up credentials, but I didn't actually test them because I was going to do that I think in this video. So we'll put that to the test. So let's go to our automation controller and let's see what I already have set up and see if we need to set some more stuff up. Oh wait, I'm logging in as admin for this. So I'm going to have a credential to talk to my source control, which I have a GitLab server running in my lab. It looks like I have that, and I think the mistake that I made was I did not specify a username. So we're going to put this to the test and see if it'll work even without that. I doubt that it will, but we'll try that out. I'll also need a credential to connect to the machines, which I think I've already done here. Yeah, username Ansible, and I'm using an SSH key. So no need to repeat that. That should be everything I need credential-wise. So the first of the sub-objectives is talking about run playbooks in Automation Controller. Well, in order to do that, you have to have a project. So we're going to create ourselves a project. And what this project is, it's going to be something that is basically, or I mean, there may be other methods of this. I'm not sure that there are, but you're pulling in stuff from whatever your source control mechanism is, and this stuff will be playbooks. It'll be inventory files. It'll be all the stuff that is needed to run, to basically run your playbooks. So we're going to make this project, we'll call it final prep. Actually, I'll have to do dashes. I'll do this final prep. I'm not going to give it a description. It'll be obviously a part of the default organization. We're not going, you can set an execution environment at the project level. We're not going to do that. I'm going to set this probably at the job template level, but if you wanted, you could set it here. Source control type is going to be Git. And now there's other source control you can use. I guess manual. Let's see. I even thought about doing manual. So I guess you could have a local directory on your controller. And I'm not sure where you would use this, because I would think that you would want to keep all of your Ansible assets within source control, but there's a couple of different ways of doing this. Probably what you'll most likely use is Git, and I have a feeling on the exam, if I have to create a project, I'm probably going to have to do that with Git. So we'll need a source control URL. Let me open another tab for GitLab so we can get the exact URL. And we're going to be using the manage AAP repo, which of course I don't have anything other than maybe a README file. And of course it's having problems, but that's fine as long as it can be reached via the command line. By default, it's going to try to pull your main branch, but if you wanted, you could specify a particular branch. You can also have allow branch override checked, which means that at the job template level and such, you can specify a different branch. But for this, we're just going to use the main branch. And source control credential, I'm actually going to try AAP Git. I'm fairly sure this is going to fail because I don't have a username attached to it, but let's see. So we'll do save, and it will automatically try to sync. And so we're going to see if this works. So I'll pause the video and come. Oh, it was successful. I was thinking that would take longer. I guess not, because I don't have the items, but now I'm curious. I'm going to go back into the credential and actually add the username. I think I remember reading somewhere you don't need to do that or obviously we don't need to do that, but let's see what happens. So the username I'm using is Eddie for this, because when you're doing an SSH connection, you're actually connecting, to the Git user, and then whatever SSH key you have configured has been set on that Git server to, be an allowed key. Let's go back to our projects and let's try to sync this again. Let's see if it works. So it looks like it can be either way. I would probably put the username in if I were setting this. I might, between now and the exam, I might see if I can dredge up whatever article that was that I read that made me think I didn't have to have a user account with that. But the point being, now that this can successfully sync, we can make our playbooks available to the project for use. So that being said, we're going to create a couple of things. First, we'll do an ansible.cfg file. And in this, I'm just going to set a couple of things. We'll do inventory, and we're going to put that in the inv directory. Let's see. The other defaults I want to put with this. Could probably put collections, but nah, we'll just stick with just what the inventory is going to be. So I'll make that directory. What I'm going to do, I should probably do this as a branch, but I'll just do it on the main branch. That's fine. Typically I wouldn't do that, but what I'm going to do is go into here. I'm pretty sure I have, so I'm going to copy hosts to just where I don't have to rewrite that inventory again. If I were to do Ansible inventory, should have all my hosts. Yeah. All right. Excellent. So we have that, and let us do a little playbook. This is going to be a very simple thing. We'll call it ping test. YML. Can we ping the hosts? We do not need to become, and our tasks will be very simple. Ansible built-in ping, and run this against all hosts. I could create, a more elaborate playbook, and I probably will as I get a little closer to the exam. And really, at this point, I'm not going to be really learning anything new for the exam, but I'll just be drilling some things, like especially the working with some filters and lookup plugins, just to try to become a little bit more familiar with them as far as getting them on the front side of my head and fingers rather than trying to learn new concepts. But for this practice session, I'm just kind of doing a demonstration of things to see if I can make something work, and I feel like I know what I'm talking about. All right, so get status should show some stuff that's not tracked, and it does. We'll add all of it, and as a habit, I always do get status afterward. Get commit, and we will say initial, make initial items. Just push this up to main. All right, and I'm not sure what the default sync is, but this will sync periodically. But I wanted to go ahead and sync this now. All right, so we're working on running playbooks and automation controller. So to do that, we are going to create a job template, because really running a playbook is a job with Ansible Automation Controller. So I'm clicking workflow template for this. I have not actually played with the workflow templates with this. This is probably something that I need to do. I think this is more of a, we'll experiment with that before the end of the video. And of course, I just said a few minutes ago, I'm not going to be trying new stuff. But to mimic what we would have been doing on the command line, what we will do is make a regular job template, and the type is going to be run. And we'll give it a name. I'm going to call it ping test. We don't have an inventory yet, so actually I need to go back and create that. So let's make us an inventory. So we will add inventory. Call it final prep inventory. We're not going to add any variables for this inventory yet, and labels. Yeah, we're not going to deal with that. We do need to give it some hosts, and the source we're going to use for this inventory, there are several that we could possibly choose from. I call it this idea from like VMware vCenter and such. You can have Ansible Automation Platform. This is basically doing dynamic inventory. It will reach out to these things and populate an inventory. We are going to be using a project for this, and the project that I'm using is our final prep project. And even though this appears, that's not a valid thing. That's obviously a valid project. And we are going to use the host file for the inventory. I guess we can update this on project update, or update on launch. Interesting. It's not going to be changing, but there'll be some curious options to try out. And it was successful. So we can go back to sources, and we see all of our hosts that are here. So now we have an inventory. Now we can make our job template. So we'll call it ping test. Now we have an inventory to use, final prep inventory. We have a project that will be associated with it, which is the final prep project. This is what gets us access to the actual playbook. Execution environment. For right now, we're going to use the default execution environment. We can change this, and we will later on. And for playbook, it has found pingtest.yml. The credential we're going to connect as will be our AAP host credential. And here you can do things like limit, the same as doing -L with your Ansible playbook or Ansible navigator command. You can specify tags, and this is stuff that I've covered in other practice sessions and such. So we'll save this, and we either can click launch, or I think, yeah, these are current jobs. That is where you can see your jobs. But for the templates, you can click the launch button, and hopefully this should work. Famous last words in IT should, right? Yep, so ping worked, and everybody is happy that ping has worked. So at the very basic, let me scroll my hypervisor up there. For the very basic thing of run a playbook and automation controller, we've done that. Now, one thing I do want to poke around with, because I actually have not practiced this, so we'll do this on the fly, is workflow template. And I think these are, you can watch tutorials and such, and and marketing materials from Red Hat for Ansible automation platform. But I think the workflow template is this kind of stuff of you run the playbook, and if the playbook is successful, run the next one. If it's not successful, run something else. So let us try to build one of these just to see what happens. Test workflow, we'll do the normal default. The inventory we'll use is final prep inventory. Okay, so specify source control branch. Curious, we have not specified a project yet, so I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, this is, so we'll do ping test. Yeah, I think this is outside of some of the scope of the training for this exam, or at least the materials I've used really haven't covered this. But this is actually kind of interesting. Yeah, I'll want to dig into the documentation of this. So we'll do save. Oh, this is why. We'll start with the ping test, and yep, if successful, if failure, let's say on failure, we want to, I see. So on failure, we will run another job template, which is basically a playbook on and on and on. Yeah, that's what I thought this is. So that's kind of neat. I would need to write multiple playbooks to make this kind of make sense, but we may do that with this video. I'm now intrigued, but I want to hit the actual objectives first. Eyes on the prize, stay focused, right? So we need to pull content into Automation Controller from either Git or Automation Hub. Well, we've done Git in the fact that once we synced our project, we got the playbook there, and technically we pulled an execution environment from Automation Hub and ran it with a playbook, but that was a built-in thing. So let's make us an execution environment. And what I'm going to do here, make a git ignore, and we are going to ignore the EE directory. And we're going to make ourselves a little execution environment. So we'll copy ansible.cfg. I have to tell it where to copy to. We need to make execution environment.yml. So used to doing version 1. I think there's 3 versions of execution environments now. That'll be something that I'll want to research and learn about. Build arg defaults, I'm fairly sure is what that is. We'll grab the image names in just a moment. And we actually are not going to have any dependencies. I've covered, adding collection dependencies and such, but here we're basically going to make a clone of, I guess we can add the community, and we'll do that. We'll add community and Ansible POSIX. So, dependencies. Galaxy is going to be requirements.yml. And we won't add any Python stuff to that. And I try to be a stickler about my YAML. All right, requirements.yml. This is going to be collections, Ansible POSIX, and community general. And while we're at it, I'm going to need to get that from Automation Hub. So I'll need to add that because I want to pull from Automation Hub for this stuff. So let's go to repository management, copy to clipboard the CLI configuration, and we'll do the same thing for the community, do the same thing for the Red Hat certified stuff. Of course, we can only have one Galaxy statement for that, and let me create an API token. Okay, so now that should work better, and we'll go ahead and copy this. Ansible CFG. Okay, good. So now that should be able to build the execution environment. And speaking of, we needed to get the name of each of the execution environments. So we'll grab the minimal environment to use as our base. We'll grab the builder environment as well. Just trying to make my own, just outside of these practice sessions, make an execution environment without some of these stuff. Just trying from like my own UBI image, and I have not yet been successful with that. I'm determined to see if I can make my own execution environment without having to use the official Red Hat stuff. All right, so this should be, oh, and I want to specify Ansible config. So this should be everything I would need to build my execution environment. And I know I'm going to have to do my ignore certs with Ansible Galaxy. I could probably put that as a part of the I think there's build args I could do, probably put that in execution environment, but I'll just do it in the container file. So we'll do Ansible builder, create. We'll make our change in the container file to deal with my self-signed cert. And we'll do our build. So podman build the container file. We're going to tag this with aphub.ejslab.com/final prep EE. And oh yeah, I need to authenticate. So podman login aphub.ejslab.com. All right, let's try this again. There we go. That will do better. And while that's running, let me open another tab. Added some stuff here. We'll go ahead and push this up. It's not a good commit message, but that'll be okay for what we're doing here. Again, I'm just pushing to main. So I'm going to pause for a moment, let this finish up, and then I'll come back once the execution environment has been made. All right, so we now have an execution environment. Let's go ahead and push this to Private Automation Hub. All right, so that's there. Let's go to our Private Automation Hub, go back to Execution Environments, and we see that we have Final Prep EE. I'm actually going to click this here and copy this because we're going to need to make the execution environment available on the automation controller. Now there is something you can do here. Click Using Controller, and this will basically take you to the page that you need to do the configuration, and it fills in the image information and such for you. So we'll call it Final Prep EE. Otherwise, we would just go to the automation controller here, go to execution environments, and add an execution environment. We're going to have it always pull, even though we don't necessarily need to do that. The registry credential that we are using is the Automation Hub registry. Let's say that I stored this in GitLab as well, then I would need to create a container registry credential for GitLab to be able to get that there, no pun intended. Organization, so I'll allow the default organization to use it. All right, let me look back at the objectives. So pull all execution environment from Automation Hub and run it in a playbook. Well, for the as basic as it gets, so I'm going to go back to my other tab. We'll go back to our ping test job template. I'm going to edit it now. And we're going to change the execution environment to Final Prep EE and save. And let's launch it. Let's see if this still runs with the execution environment that I made, which is basically the minimal environment plus 2 collections. I imagine that it should. Yep, everything is nice and happy. One thing I am curious about, job template. Okay, I was wondering if we could like basically write a template and write a playbook in the GUI, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So now that I'm interested in this little workflow thing, so let's see how long this video is. We've already hit 30-something minutes, so I'll probably stop it here because for the actual objectives, there's nothing here that talks about workflows, but I might mess around with this between now and the exam. But as far as these 3 things, running a playbook in Automation Controller, we had the most basic of all playbooks, but the principle is there. We pulled content from Git in this case, and actually pulled from Automation Hub as well, as far as the execution environment. And we pulled the execution environment from Automation Hub, and we ran a playbook in it. We did our little ping playbook. So I think for these objectives, I'm pretty well versed for the exam next week if I happen to have tasks that have me do these, and I'm fairly certain that I will, because this is kind of the crux of using Ansible Automation Platform. So if you have found this video and this series useful, make sure you do click like. Also, if you enjoyed it, click like. I'm not sure where the enjoyment comes from, but watching my little practices might give you some ideas of stuff that you can do, which is the goal. I want to thank returning subscribers again for watching, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do click that subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when I do publish new content. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you the next time.